Love in the Tea Fields. Chapter 1, Whispers in the Tea Fields. The early morning sun peeked over the horizon, casting long, golden rays across the lush tea fields. The dew-kissed leaves sparkled like diamonds, creating a mesmerizing tapestry of green and gold. The air was crisp with the scent of fresh tea leaves, a scent that enveloped the senses and promised tranquility. Yoon, a young woman in her early 20s, gently wove her way through the rows of tea bushes. Her delicate hands moved with practiced ease, plucking the tender leaves and dropping them into the woven basket strapped to her back. Despite the physical exertion, her movements were fluid and graceful, a testament to years of labor and dedication. "Good morning, Yoon," a familiar voice called out. She turned to see Han-soo, a fellow worker, approaching. Han-soo was a little older, with kind eyes and an easy smile that could light up the gloomiest of days. He carried his own basket, nearly full with freshly plucked leaves. "Good morning, Han-soo," Yoon replied, returning his smile. They had shared many mornings like this, working side by side in the fields, finding solace in each other's company. The Japanese occupation had brought harsh times, but within the bounds of the plantation, they found a semblance of peace. As they continued their work, a gentle breeze whispered through the tea bushes, carrying with it the murmurs of the land and the weight of unspoken words. Yoon and Han-soo exchanged glances, perfecting their silent understanding. In a world rampant with surveillance and suspicion, words could often betray them, but their shared looks spoke volumes. The plantation owner, an elderly Korean man named Mr. Park, approached them. He had always been kind to his workers, offering whatever protection he could against the occupiers. "The harvest looks promising," he said, his eyes twinkling with a mix of hope and caution. "Yes, Mr. Park," Han-soo replied, "we will ensure the best quality leaves for your tea." Mr. Park nodded, but his gaze lingered on them. He saw not just workers but the future of his country, resilient and ready to fight for their freedom in their unique ways. As the sun climbed higher, their baskets filled with leaves, and they moved to the shaded processing area. Here, they laid out the leaves to dry, carefully spreading them in even layers. The rhythm of their work was soothing, a balm against the oppressive reality beyond the plantation borders. During their lunch break, Yoon and Han-soo sat together under a large willow tree. They shared a simple meal of rice and pickled vegetables, savoring the brief respite. "Have you heard any news?" Yoon asked quietly, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of unwelcome visitors. Han-soo shook his head, his voice low. "Only rumors. But there's talk of a resistance movement growing stronger. People are fighting back in small but significant ways." Yoon felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. The idea of resistance was exhilarating, yet the consequences of getting involved were dire. She looked at Han-soo, seeing in him the quiet resolve that had always drawn her to him. "We must be careful," she said softly, "but we must also do what we can." Han-soo reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Yoon's. "Together, we'll find a way," he said. His touch was a promise, a vow of solidarity and love amidst the brewing storm. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity. As night fell, the workers returned to their modest homes on the plantation. Yoon lay in her small room, staring at the ceiling, her mind filled with thoughts of Han-soo and the uncertain future. Outside, the tea fields rustled in the night breeze, whispering stories of love and resilience. In the darkness, Yoon found solace in the knowledge that, even in the harshest of times, love could flourish like the tea leaves in their fields. Together, she and Han-soo would face whatever challenges came their way, united by the whispers of the tea fields and the strength of their bond. Chapter 2, Secrets Beneath the Leaves. Yoon barely slept that night, her thoughts consumed by the growing resistance and Han-soo's quiet resolve. When morning finally came, she rose with a newfound determination. The early dawn light painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, a serene backdrop to the day's labor. As usual, Yoon and Han-soo met in the tea fields. They exchanged a silent greeting, their eyes speaking volumes in the stillness of the morning. They resumed their work, plucking the tender tea leaves with practiced ease. Each leaf they picked was a small act of defiance, a tribute to the resilience of their spirit. The day progressed much like the previous ones, with the workers moving in a well-rehearsed harmony. However, there was a palpable tension in the air. The Japanese overseers had increased their patrols, and whispers of dissent grew louder amongst the workers. Yoon and Han-soo knew they had to be cautious. During their lunch break, Yoon and Han-soo found a secluded spot beneath a large oak tree. They sat close, their faces set with determination. "I've heard more whispers about the resistance," Han-soo began, his voice low but steady. "They need our help, Yoon. We can't just stand by and do nothing." Yoon nodded, her resolve matching his. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice firm. "How can we make a difference?" Han-soo leaned in, his eyes searching hers. "There's a supply line we can disrupt," he whispered. "It's risky, but if we succeed, it will cripple their operations for a time. The resistance needs us to gather information and find a way to sabotage it." Yoon took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their mission. She glanced around, making sure they were still alone. "We'll need to be careful," she said. "One wrong move, and it'll cost us everything." Han-soo nodded, a grim determination settling in his eyes. "We'll do it together," he promised. "I won't let anything happen to you." They spent the rest of their break discussing their plan in hushed tones, careful not to draw attention. As the sun climbed higher, they returned to the fields, their hearts heavy with the burden of their secret. Days turned into weeks as Yoon and Han-soo quietly gathered information. They listened to the overseers' conversations, observed the movements of the supply trucks, and memorized the schedules of the guards. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, their love for each other a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, Han-soo pulled out a small notebook. "I've been keeping track of everything," he said, showing her the pages filled with sketches and notes. "This will help us plan our move." Yoon marveled at his dedication and skill. She traced her fingers over the pages, feeling a rush of pride and affection for him. "You're incredible," she whispered, leaning in to kiss him gently. Han-soo smiled, his eyes filled with love. "We're incredible," he corrected, wrapping his arms around her. "Together, we can do this." Their stolen moments of affection fueled their determination. They knew the risks, but the thought of a future free from oppression kept them going. The days grew shorter as they approached the time to act. On the eve of their mission, Yoon and Han-soo stood at the edge of the tea fields, holding hands. The moonlight bathed the landscape in a soft glow, casting long shadows across the rows of tea bushes. "Promise me you'll be careful," Yoon said, her voice trembling with emotion. Han-soo nodded, pulling her close. "I promise," he whispered, kissing her forehead. "We'll get through this together." As they parted ways, ready to set their plan into motion, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. The secrets they had uncovered and the love they shared gave them the strength to face whatever lay ahead. That night, the tea fields hummed with the whispered hopes of two hearts united by love and a shared resolve to fight for their freedom. Chapter 3, Morning Dew and Silent Promises. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Yoon felt the familiar rhythms of their daily routine, but today, the air was charged with a sense of purpose. She and Han-soo exchanged a determined glance as they made their way to the tea fields, their secret mission weighing heavily on their minds. Their work in the tea fields continued as usual, but every movement was filled with tension. With each leaf they plucked, they rehearsed the details of their plan, every step bringing them closer to the moment of truth. During their lunch break, Yoon and Han-soo found a secluded spot in the shade of an ancient ginkgo tree. The dappled sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting a serene glow on their faces. Hansu pulled out his notebook, and they reviewed their notes one last time. "We've accounted for the guards' patrols," Hansu murmured, tracing the lines on the page. "We just need to be quick and precise." Yoon nodded, her resolve unwavering. "We'll succeed," she said softly, intertwining her fingers with his. "For our future, and for everyone who depends on us." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Yoon and Hansu prepared for their mission under the cover of darkness. The night was cloaked in a heavy silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hum of cicadas. They moved quietly, their hearts pounding with anticipation. In the shadows, they approached the supply depot where the Japanese soldiers stored their provisions. Hansu gestured for Yoon to stay back, and she nodded, watching as he deftly dismantled a section of the fence. His movements were swift and practiced, a testament to his dedication and skill. Once inside, they navigated the maze of crates and barrels, searching for the crucial supplies they needed to disrupt. Hansu paused, listening intently for any sign of the guards. The tension was palpable, each second stretched into an eternity. Finally, they found the right crates, ammunition and food supplies vital to the occupiers. With a shared glance, they began their sabotage. Hansu used a small knife to puncture the containers, while Yoon carefully planted small charges in strategic places. As they worked, the weight of their actions pressed heavily on their shoulders. They knew the risks if caught, their lives would be forfeit. But the thought of a future free from oppression kept them steady. Their task complete, they slipped back through the hole in the fence, leaving behind the whispers of their rebellion. The night air was cool against their flushed faces as they made their way back to the safety of the tea fields. Breathless and exhilarated, they collapsed under the ginkgo tree, their hearts pounding in unison. Hansu reached for Yoon's hand, holding it tightly. "We did it," he whispered, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and triumph. Yoon smiled, her eyes shining with love and determination. "Together," she replied, leaning in to kiss him softly. The warmth of their embrace was a stark contrast to the cold reality they faced, but it gave them strength. As they lay beneath the trees, the first hints of dawn began to break, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. The morning dew glistened on the tea leaves, a silent promise of their shared future. They knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but their love and resolve were unwavering. Yoon and Hansu rose, ready to face whatever came next. Their first act of rebellion had been a success, and it fueled their determination to continue the fight. The whispers in the tea fields carried their silent promises, and the world felt a little brighter with each step they took together. Chapter 4, Unseen Shadows. The routine of life on the tea plantation resumed, but the air was thick with a quiet anticipation. Yoon and Hansu had successfully completed their mission, but they knew that was only the beginning. The resistance depended on them to continue their efforts, and the shadows of danger loomed ever closer. The overseers seemed more vigilant, their eyes sharp and suspicious as they patrolled the fields. Whispers of dissent grew louder among the workers, but Yoon and Hansu knew they had to be careful. Every glance, every word exchanged had to be weighed and measured. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the tea fields, Hansu approached Yoon with a grave expression. "We need to meet with the resistance leaders," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. "They have crucial information for us." Yoon nodded, her heart pounding. The thought of meeting the resistance leaders filled her with equal parts fear and excitement. She knew this was an important step in their fight for freedom. Under the cover of darkness, they made their way to the hidden meeting place, a secluded cave deep within the forest. The path was treacherous, but their resolve was unwavering. As they approached the cave's entrance, a flickering light greeted them, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Inside, they were met by a small group of resistance leaders, their faces hardened by the struggles they had endured. The leader, an older man with a stern demeanor, stepped forward. "Welcome," he said, his voice firm but kind. "You've done well in your first mission." The sense of camaraderie in the cave was palpable. Yoon and Han-soo listened intently as the leaders shared their plans and strategies. They learned about the broader resistance efforts and the many small acts of rebellion happening across the region. One of the leaders, a woman named Ji-young, handed them a map marked with crucial locations. "These are the places we need to disrupt next," she explained. "Every small victory chips away at their control." Yoon and Han-soo studied the map, committing the details to memory. The next mission wouldn't be easy, but they were ready to face whatever came their way. As they left the cave, the weight of their responsibilities pressed heavily on their hearts. The forest seemed to close in around them, the unseen shadows following their every step. But they knew they weren't alone in their struggle. Back at the plantation, they resumed their work in the fields. The overseer's watchful eyes never left them, but Yoon and Han-soo managed to steal moments of quiet conversation, planning their next move. One afternoon, as they worked side by side, Han-soo's gaze softened. "Yoon," he murmured, his voice filled with emotion. "I never believed in fate until I met you. Whatever happens, I want you to know that you've given me the strength to fight." Yoon felt a lump in her throat, her heart swelling with love for him. "We'll get through this, Han-soo," she whispered, her hand brushing against his. "Together, we'll create a future where we can be free." Their stolen moments of affection were brief but powerful, fueling their determination. The shadows might have grown longer, but their love remained a beacon of light in the darkness. As the days turned into weeks, their plans took shape. They continued to gather information, quietly sabotaging the occupiers' efforts whenever they could. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, their love a constant anchor amidst the chaos. One evening, as they sat beneath the ginkgo tree, Han-soo sighed. "The road ahead is difficult, but I believe in us." Yoon leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Together, we can face anything," she said softly, her heart filled with hope and determination. The unseen shadows lingered around them, but within the whispers of the tea fields, Yoon and Han-soo found the strength to keep fighting. Their love was a powerful force, capable of defying even the darkest of times. Chapter 5, Love Amid the Blossoms. Spring arrived with a burst of colors, painting the tea fields with vibrant hues. The cherry blossoms bloomed in a spectacular display, their delicate pink petals dancing in the wind. Amid the beauty of the season, Yoon and Han-soo's love blossomed, even as the shadows of occupation loomed large. Each day, they worked diligently in the fields, their hearts beating in unison. The overseer's scrutiny had intensified, but Yoon and Han-soo had become adept at evading their gaze. Their secret meetings with the resistance continued, each one a step closer to their ultimate goal. One afternoon, as they worked side by side, Han-soo's hand brushed against Yoon's. A spark passed between them, and they exchanged a knowing glance. The bond they shared was a lifeline, grounding them in the midst of turmoil. That evening, as the sun set in a blaze of orange and gold, Han-soo led Yoon to a secluded grove on the edge of the plantation. The cherry blossoms adorned the trees, their petals falling like gentle rain. "I've been wanting to bring you here," Han-soo said, his voice soft with emotion. "It's our little sanctuary." Yoon smiled, her heart swelling with affection. The grove was a haven, a place where they could escape the harsh realities of their world. They sat beneath a cherry tree, the petals forming a delicate carpet around them. "Han-soo," Yoon began, her voice trembling with emotion. "I never imagined I could find such happiness in these dark times. You've given me hope, and for that, I'm forever grateful." Han-soo reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "We've found strength in each other," he said, his eyes filled with love. "No matter what happens, I want you to know that our love is my anchor." As the twilight deepened, they shared their dreams for the future. They spoke of a world free from oppression, where they could live in peace and build a life together. The burdens of their responsibilities felt lighter in those moments, their love a powerful force against the encroaching darkness. The next day, their renewed resolve was put to the test. The overseers announced that a high-ranking Japanese official would be visiting the plantation. The workers were ordered to prepare a special batch of tea for the occasion, and the atmosphere was tense with the weight of expectation. Yoon and Hansu exchanged a worried glance. They knew the importance of this visit and the potential danger it brought. As they worked diligently, they whispered their plan to each other, ensuring every detail was clear. The day of the visit arrived, and the plantation was abuzz with activity. The aroma of freshly plucked tea leaves filled the air as the workers hurried to prepare the finest batch. The overseers were extra vigilant, their eyes scanning every worker for any sign of dissent. Yoon and Hansu moved carefully, their nerves taut with anticipation. The high-ranking official arrived with an entourage, and the air grew thick with tension. They watched from the shadows as the official inspected the tea fields, his expression stern and unyielding. As the official's entourage moved toward the processing area, Hansu whispered to Yoon, "It's time." They slipped away from the main group, making their way to the secluded storage area where the special batch of tea was being prepared. With practiced precision, they planted small charges in the crates, ensuring their sabotage would have maximum impact. Just as they finished, a guard appeared, his eyes narrowing at the sight of them. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, suspicion lacing his voice. Thinking quickly, Yoon answered, "We were instructed to check the tea leaves for quality." The guard's gaze remained fixed on them, but he nodded. "Be quick about it," he said, turning to leave. Their hearts pounding, Yoon and Hansu completed their task and returned to the main group. The high-ranking official's visit concluded without incident, but they knew the true impact of their actions would soon be felt. That night, as they sat beneath the cherry blossoms, Hansu pulled Yoon close. "We did it," he whispered, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and triumph. Yoon sighed, resting her head on his shoulder. "For now," she replied. "But we must stay vigilant. The road ahead is long, but our love will guide us." As the cherry blossoms fluttered around them, they found solace in each other's embrace, their love a beacon of hope in the darkness. The unseen shadows might have grown longer, but their bond remained unbreakable, a testament to the power of love amid the blossoms. Chapter 6, Storm over the Plantation. Thunder rolled in the distance, heralding the arrival of a heavy storm. The sky, once a canvas of vibrant colors, turned into a foreboding shade of gray. The tea fields swayed in the wind, their leaves rustling like whispers of impending doom. Yoon and Hansu worked tirelessly, their faces set with determination. The weight of their recent sabotage hung over them, but the urgency of the storm pushed them into action. The tea fields were their lifeline, and they couldn't afford to lose them to the fury of nature. As the storm approached, Mr. Park gathered the workers, his voice steady but urgent. "We must secure the tea bushes and protect the leaves," he instructed. "This storm could destroy our entire harvest." The workers sprang into action, their movements synchronized by years of practice. Yoon and Hansu worked side by side, their hands moving swiftly to cover the tea plants with protective tarps. The wind howled around them, tugging at their clothes and making their task even more difficult. "Hold on!" Hansu shouted over the roar of the wind, securing a tarp with all his strength. Yoon struggled beside him, the cold rain starting to pelt their faces. The storm unleashed its fury, rain pouring down in torrents and lightning illuminating the sky. The tea fields seemed to come alive, the plants swaying violently in the gale. The workers fought against the elements, their determination unwavering. Hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. By the time the storm finally began to subside, the workers were exhausted, their clothes soaked and their bodies aching. But their efforts had paid off. The tea bushes stood resilient, protected from the storm's worst ravages. As the rain slowed to a drizzle, Yoon and Han-soo slumped against the ginkgo tree, catching their breath. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and tea leaves. Han-soo reached out to wipe the rain from Yoon-jin's face, his touch gentle despite his exhaustion. "We did it," he murmured, his voice soft with relief. "The storm couldn't break us." Yoon-jin smiled, her heart swelling with pride and love. "No storm ever will," she replied, leaning in to kiss him softly. Their embrace was a moment of respite, a reminder of the strength they found in each other. As the workers regrouped, Mr. Park approached Yoon-jin and Han-soo, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You both did well," he said, his voice warm. "Your dedication and courage are as strong as these tea bushes." The storm had tested their resolve, but it had also renewed their sense of purpose. The love they shared was a beacon of hope, guiding them through the darkest of times. That night, as they lay in their modest homes, the world seemed a little brighter. The tea fields survived the storm, but the fight for their freedom was far from over. The whispers in the tea fields carried their hopes and dreams, and they knew they had to stay vigilant. The following days saw a renewed focus on their mission. The resistance's efforts intensified, and Yoon-jin and Han-soo found themselves at the heart of it all. They continued to gather information, quietly sabotaging the occupiers' operations whenever they could. One evening, as they sat beneath the cherry blossoms, Han-soo pulled out his notebook. "There's another supply route we need to disrupt," he explained, showing her the details he had painstakingly gathered. "It's critical to their operations." Yoon-jin nodded, her resolve matching his. "We'll make our move tomorrow night," she said. "For the future we believe in." As they planned their next mission, the cherry blossoms fluttered around them, a symbol of their enduring love. The storm had tested their strength, but it had also solidified their bond. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, their love a powerful force against the unseen shadows. Chapter 7, Echoes of the Past. The storm had passed, leaving the tea fields and their community intact. Yet, the echoes of their recent mission lingered, casting a long shadow over their daily lives. The resistance was growing stronger, and Yoon-jin and Han-soo found themselves drawn deeper into the fight for freedom. One afternoon, as they worked side by side in the tea fields, Han-soo noticed Yoon-jin's distant expression. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his voice gentle but concerned. Yoon-jin paused, her fingers stilling on the tea leaves. "I've been thinking about my family," she admitted. "The sacrifices they made and the strength they showed during these difficult times." Han-soo nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "Our past shapes us," he said softly. "But it also gives us the strength to fight for a better future." That evening, as they sat under the ginkgo tree, Yoon-jin began to share her family's history. "My father was a respected scholar," she said, her voice tinged with pride and sadness. "He believed in the power of knowledge and the importance of education. But when the occupation began, he was arrested for his resistance activities." Han-soo listened intently, his hand gently squeezing hers. "Your father was brave," he said. "And his courage lives on in you." Yoon-jin felt a tear escape, but she quickly wiped it away. "My mother worked tirelessly to support us, taking on whatever jobs she could find. She taught me the value of resilience and hard work." Han-soo's heart swelled with admiration for Yoon-jin and her family's strength. "You come from a line of fighters," he said. "It's no wonder you're so strong." Yoon-jin looked at Han-soo, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "Your support means everything to me." As the night grew darker, the stars twinkled above them, a reminder of the vastness of the world and their place within it. They sat in silence, finding solace in each other's presence. In the days that followed, the resistance leaders called for another meeting. Yoon-jin and Han-soo made their way to the secluded cave, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of what lay ahead. Inside the cave, Ji-young greeted them with a sense of urgency. "We have new intelligence," she said, laying out a map on the ground. "The occupiers are planning a major supply convoy, and we need to intercept it." Hansu studied the map, his mind racing with possibilities. "We can target the bridge they'll be crossing," he suggested. "It's a critical choke point." The resistance leaders agreed, and they quickly formulated a plan. Yoon and Hansu would lead a small team to sabotage the bridge and disrupt the convoy. The mission was risky, but it was their best chance to strike a significant blow. As they prepared for the mission, Yoon felt a surge of determination. She thought of her father's courage and her mother's resilience, drawing strength from their memory. Hansu's presence beside her was a comforting anchor, grounding her in the face of uncertainty. The night of the mission arrived, and they moved under the cover of darkness. The team worked swiftly, planting charges at strategic points along the bridge. The air was thick with tension, every sound magnified in the stillness of the night. As they completed their task, the distant rumble of the convoy's trucks reached their ears. They slipped into the shadows, hearts pounding with anticipation. The explosion shattered the night, a deafening roar that lit up the sky. The bridge crumbled, and the convoy came to a screeching halt. The resistance had succeeded, but there was no time to celebrate. They scattered into the night, making their way back to the safety of the tea fields. As they regrouped under the ginkgo tree, their hearts were filled with a mixture of triumph and relief. "We did it," Hansu whispered, his voice filled with awe. Yoon smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "For our future," she replied, her hand finding his in the darkness. The echoes of their past had given them the strength to fight, and their love continued to guide them through the darkest of times. Together, they faced the unseen shadows, ready to create a better future for themselves and their community. Chapter 8, Fields of Fire. The success of their mission had been a tremendous boost to the resistance, but it also heightened the danger around them. The Japanese occupiers were infuriated by the sabotage, increasing their patrols and tightening their grip on the region. Every day brought new challenges and new threats. Yoon and Hansu continued their covert operations, their bond growing ever stronger. The daily grind of the tea fields masked their activities, but the risk of discovery was ever present. They found solace in stolen moments, their love a sanctuary against the chaos. One afternoon, as they worked in the fields, Mr. Park called a meeting of the workers. His expression was grave, and a hush fell over the crowd. "We've received word that the occupiers plan to conduct a raid on the plantation," he said, his voice heavy with concern. "We need to be prepared." The sense of urgency was palpable. The workers exchanged worried glances, knowing the raid could bring devastation to their homes and livelihoods. Yoon and Hansu knew they had to act swiftly. That night, as they sat beneath the ginkgo tree, they devised a plan. "We need to protect the tea fields and our community," Hansu said, his voice filled with determination. "We can't let them destroy everything we've worked for." Yoon nodded, her resolve matching his. "We'll gather the resistance and prepare for the raid," she said. "We need to be ready for anything." In the days leading up to the raid, the resistance worked tirelessly to fortify the plantation. They set up hidden defenses, prepared escape routes, and trained the workers in basic self-defense. The tea fields became a hidden stronghold, ready to withstand the coming storm. The night of the raid arrived with an eerie stillness. The occupiers' trucks rumbled in the distance, growing louder as they approached the plantation. Yoon and Hansu took their positions, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The first wave of soldiers stormed the plantation, their harsh shouts cutting through the night. The workers fought back with a fierce determination, their courage shining through the darkness. The resistance's hidden defenses sprang to life, catching the occupiers off guard. Amid the chaos, Yoon and Hansu moved like shadows, guiding the workers and striking at the heart of the invaders. The tea fields became a battlefield, the flames of resistance lighting up the night. Han Su found himself face to face with a high-ranking officer. Their eyes locked, and the officer's sneer was unmistakable. "You think you can defy us?" he spat, drawing his sword. Han Su's grip tightened on his weapon, his resolve unshaken. "We fight for our freedom," he replied, his voice steady. "And we will never stop." Their clash was swift and brutal, each movement a dance of life and death. The officer's sword slashed through the air, but Han Su parried with skill and precision. With a final, decisive strike, Han Su disarmed the officer and sent him sprawling to the ground. Yoon fought beside him, her heart pounding with adrenaline. She had never been more certain of their cause, their love driving her forward. Together, they stood as a symbol of resistance, their bond unbreakable. As the battle raged on, the tide began to turn in favor of the resistance. The occupiers, disoriented and unprepared, found themselves overpowered by the workers' fierce resolve. The flames of resistance burned bright, illuminating their path to victory. By the time the sun began to rise, the raid had been repelled. The plantation stood strong, though the scars of battle were evident. Yoon and Han Su looked out over the tea fields, their hearts filled with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. Mr. Park approached them, his eyes shining with gratitude. "You've done more than protect these fields," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've given us all hope." Yoon and Han Su smiled, their love and determination renewed. They knew the fight was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The fields of fire had tested their strength, but their bond remained unbreakable. As they stood together, the first light of dawn bathed the tea fields in a golden glow. The whispers in the tea fields carried their story, a testament to the power of love and the unyielding spirit of resistance. Together, they would continue to fight for their future, their love a guiding light in the darkness. Chapter 9, Shadows of Sacrifice. Despite their recent victory, a solemn reminder hung in the air: this fight for freedom demanded sacrifices. The plantation bore the scars of battle, evidence of the cost paid by those determined to resist the occupiers. Yoon and Han Su knew their journey was fraught with peril but felt more resolved to press on. As the morning sun began to warm the tea fields, a somber assembly formed around Mr. Park. He addressed the workers, his voice filled with a mixture of pride and warning. "What we achieved last night was remarkable, but the fight is far from over. We must stay vigilant, for the enemy will return." Yoon and Han Su stood together, their hands clasped tightly, drawing strength from each other. They could feel the weight of their future resting heavily on their shoulders, yet their love was an unyielding force. Later that day, as they worked in the fields, one of the resistance leaders, Ji-young, approached them in the shadows. "They've captured one of our own," she said, her voice trembling with urgency. "Han Su, your skills are needed to rescue him." Han Su's heart sank. The stakes had just risen again. Yoon looked at him, her eyes filled with the weight of unspoken fears. "It's dangerous," she whispered, her voice cracking, "but we can't leave him behind." Han Su nodded, his resolve firm. His love for Yoon had been his anchor, and now it was time for them to act once more. That night, they gathered with their resistance comrades, formulating a daring plan to rescue their captured ally. Each detail was dissected with precision, knowing that one misstep could prove fatal. As the moon climbed high in the sky, they set out towards the enemy camp. The cool night air was filled with tension, every shadow seeming to hide unseen threats. Han Su led the way, guiding Yoon and the others with quiet confidence. They reached the enemy camp, the guards' voices audible amidst the rustling trees. Han Su signaled for silence, and they moved stealthily, their mission clear: to bypass the perimeter and extract their comrade without raising alarms. Han Su spotted the makeshift prison tent, guarded by two soldiers. He glanced at Yoon, their hearts pounding in unison. Together, they launched a swift and decisive attack, their movements synchronized by shared purpose. Within moments, the guards were incapacitated, and they slipped into the tent. Their comrade, battered but alive, looked up in disbelief. "Hansu, Yoon, he gasped. "I thought I was done for." "No one gets left behind," Hansu whispered, cutting through the ropes that bound him. As they made their escape, the darkness seemed heavier, the shadows deeper. They knew the risk they bore, but their love and loyalty drove them forward. Suddenly, a shout rang out. A sentry had spotted them. Their cover was blown. "Run!" Hansu shouted, leading the way through the maze of tents. The enemy camp erupted into chaos, soldiers scrambling to respond. They sprinted through the trees, the sounds of pursuit growing louder. Just as freedom seemed within reach, tragedy struck. A gunshot echoed through the night, and Yoon felt a sharp pain in her side. She stumbled but kept running, her determination undimmed. Hansu turned, his heart lurching at the sight. "Yoon," he cried, rushing to her side. Despite the pain, she nodded, urging him forward. "We have to keep going," she insisted. They pushed on, the forest closing in around them. Their comrades rallied, fending off the pursuers. The night was a blur of movement, adrenaline, and desperation. Finally, they reached the safety of the tea fields, collapsing in exhaustion. Hansu cradled Yoon, his face etched with worry. The wound was serious, but with the help of their comrades, they managed to bandage it. As the adrenaline faded, the reality of their sacrifice settled in. The shadows of their struggle loomed large, but their love remained a beacon of hope. Yoon looked up at Hansu, her eyes filled with pain but also a fierce determination. "We'll keep fighting," she whispered, her voice filled with resolve. "Nothing will break us." Hansu nodded, his heart swelling with love and pride. "Together," he said softly, his voice a promise. "Always together." As dawn broke, the tea fields glimmered with the first light of day. The whispers in the tea fields carried their story of sacrifice and resilience, a testament to the strength of their bond. United by love and driven by hope, Yoon and Hansu faced the shadows of sacrifice, ready to forge a path to freedom. Chapter 10, Eternal Solace. The sun rose over the plantation, casting a warm golden glow across the tea fields. The aftermath of the daring rescue brought a bittersweet sense of triumph. Yoon's wound served as a constant reminder of the perils they faced, yet their resolve was stronger than ever. The fight for freedom had become personal, and they were unwavering in their mission. As the workers began to resume their daily tasks, a quiet determination settled over the plantation. The scars of battle were still visible, but so were the signs of resilience and hope. Yoon and Hansu continued their covert operations, their love and commitment to each other an unbreakable foundation. One evening, as they sat beneath their favorite ginkgo tree, the soft rustling of leaves provided a soothing backdrop. Yoon leaned against Hansu, the warmth of his presence a comforting balm. "We've come so far," she murmured, her voice filled with a mixture of exhaustion and pride. Hansu kissed the top of her head, his smile gentle. "And we will go even further," he replied. "Our love and determination will see us through." Their thoughts turned to the future, the world they yearned to build together. They dreamed of a life where they could walk freely through the tea fields, their hearts unburdened by fear and oppression. The whispers in the tea fields carried their hopes, a promise of a better tomorrow. The resistance had grown stronger, their efforts more coordinated and effective. Yoon and Hansu's story of courage had inspired many, and their ranks swelled with new recruits eager to fight for freedom. Together, they planned their next moves, each action a step closer to liberation. As the days passed, Yoon's wound healed, a testament to her resilience and strength. She and Hansu continued to lead the resistance, their bond growing even deeper with each challenge they faced. The love they shared was a beacon of hope, guiding them through the darkest of times. One fateful night, the resistance received word of a critical opportunity. The occupiers had a shipment of precious supplies destined for their central command, and it passed through a nearby village. Disrupting this shipment would deal a significant blow to their control. Yoon and Han-soo led a team of resistance fighters in a daring ambush. The village, once a quiet haven, became the backdrop for their latest mission. They worked under the cover of darkness, setting traps and blocking the convoy's path. The ambush was swift and decisive. The occupiers, caught off guard, scrambled to respond but were quickly overwhelmed by the resistance's coordinated attack. The villagers, emboldened by the resistance's courage, joined the fight, driving the occupiers out and reclaiming their land. Yoon and Han-soo stood together in the aftermath, their hearts pounding with adrenaline and triumph. The village was a symbol of what they were fighting for, a community united in the face of oppression, determined to reclaim their freedom. As the morning sun bathed the village in soft light, the villagers celebrated their victory. Yoon and Han-soo took a moment to reflect on their journey, the sacrifices they had made, and the love that had guided them. "We're getting closer," Yoon said softly, her eyes shining with hope. "One day, we'll wake up to a world where we don't have to fight anymore." Han-soo nodded, his hand gently squeezing hers. "And on that day, we'll walk through the tea fields together, free from fear and oppression." Their love had carried them through countless trials, and they knew there were still challenges ahead. But with each victory, their dream of freedom grew closer to reality. The whispers in the tea fields continued to carry their story, a testament to the power of love and the unyielding spirit of resistance. Together, they faced the future with courage and hope, knowing that as long as they stood united, no force could break them. The path to freedom was long and arduous, but their love, like the resilient tea leaves, would flourish against all odds.